The knock lands at 6 on the dot, hard enough to rattle the frame. "Pay rent or get out," my son barks. "I'll rent it to someone who pays an old man with nothing is useless. This Salem house I framed with my hands. He doesn't know I'm the majority owner. The cameras are rolling, and the cease and desist is signed. Today, the eviction flips. If you were me, what would you do? Please comment below, let me know if we think the same." Rain taps the gutters, Salem gray and thin outside. I sit up slow. For a breath, the words hollow me out. Old man, squatting. They echo in the bones of the house I raised from studs. I palm the groove on the banister where sandpaper once burned my skin smooth. My hand made this. My hand made all of it. In the kitchen, he's already there. Phone on the table, screen bright. No good morning, no coffee poured. Just a folded sheet he slides across the wood like a bill. "That's the number," he says. "If you want to keep living here, you pay. Otherwise, get out. I can have a paying tenant by the weekend." I take the chair by the window. The glass is cold. Outside, the maple sheds beads of water, one after another, patient as a clock. "Say it again," I tell him, voice even. "So I know I heard you right." He laughs without humor. "Stop playing owner. You live here because I allow it. Either start paying me or move. I'm not bleeding money for a useless old man." The words hit clean, like a 2x4 swung square. The first strike is hurt quick, bright, humiliating. Under it, something older lifts its head. Not anger, not yet. A steadier thing. The part of me that knows where the studs are before I cut. The part that measured twice and never begged. I wrap my hands around the mug he left. It's cold. That helps. It keeps my mouth closed. He wants noise. He wants a scene he can point to and call proof. I watch the vein jump in his neck, his thumb flicking the phone. He is already texting the next person. The future he wants doesn't have me in it. "You finished?" I ask. "For now." He shoves back his chair. Clock's ticking, rent or keys. He leaves his paper like a summons and stomps down the hall. The house swallows his footsteps, then settles. The quiet afterward is not empty. It fills with the small, faithful sounds I know by heart, the fridge's low throat, the window's faint rattle when the wind shifts, the click of the wall clock stepping forward. I breathe with them until my chest stops shaking. Eve once told me, "Don't let anyone push you out of the home you built." She meant death, I think now. Or time. She didn't imagine our son at my door with a ledger and a threat. But the sentence fits all the same. I stand. I pass the pictures without looking. I know each frame by weight. The door to the garage sticks in damp weather. It always has. My shoulder finds the angle. The smell of oil and cedar rolls over me, warm and honest. Tools hang on the pegboard in their outlines. The old stool still lists left. I never fixed that leg. I like knowing where the imperfection is. The safe waits against the back wall, paint flecked from years of boots and boxes. I set my palm on the metal. It takes the heat out of me and leaves the shape of resolve behind. Behind this door are papers, yes. But more than that, plans. The kind you make when you love someone enough to think ahead. The kind that hold when people forget who taught them what a house is. Enough, the hurt recedes. What's left is steady. I will not pay rent to my own son. I will not be shaken down in the house I raised. Today, I start taking it back. I lift my hand from the safe and reach for the light over the workbench. The safe takes the heat from my palm and gives me back a steadier man. The dial turns, the bolts withdraw, and paper breathes. I lay the deed flat, under the workbench light. Salem address, my name first, 80-20 split. Occupancy recorded my right to live here. In writing, on record. Not a threat, not a plea. A fact. I slide the original into a rigid sleeve and make 2 crisp copies. One for the file, one for a place that isn't this house. Not yet. Soon. On the desk, I set out a blank manila envelope and print a single line across the face in block letters. Property transfer final. I leave it slightly askew where a hungry eye can't miss it. Bait isn't about color. It's about placement. The garage hums its low, loyal sounds. I open the small plastic case and take out 2 pinhole cameras. One for the porch eave, one for the garage rafters. The ladder wobbles the way it always has. I plant my feet and climb anyway. The front unit nests in shadow above the doorbell, angled to catch every face, every hand near the lock. The garage unit watches the safe path from the driveway to the side door. Back at the bench, I tether them both to the router, change default passwords, and point them to an off-site vault I pay for every month. Motion alerts on, audio on, timestamps burned into the feed. If anyone tries to turn my home into a rental, the proof will rent space in a courtroom first. I snap a picture of the deed copy with my phone. Mason doesn't need a speech, just facts. I call. He answers on the second ring. You got a minute? I ask. For you, yes, he says. The deed reads 80-20. Occupancy clause recorded. My son is demanding rent and talking like he'll put strangers in the house. A beat. You have anything on paper from him? Not yet. Working on it. I also need what we discussed in December. The doctor's capacity evaluation. Notarized, sealed. And in my drawer, Mason says, if he moves for guardianship, we shut it down in the lobby. Good, I say. Draft a cease and desist about advertising or leasing a co-owned residence without consent. Add language about changing locks. Done today, he says. And Ben, keep your cool. I am, I say, and end the call. The rain finds a harder rhythm on the roof. I check the porch feed, the quiet rectangle of my front step, slick and empty. The garage feed shows the door, the shadows, my ladder still leaning like a warning. On the hallway desk, the manila envelope sits where a greedy hand will pass. I turn it a degree, just enough to shine under a restless eye. My phone buzzes. A text from Mason. Competency letter ready, say the word. The doorbell pings at mid-morning. A man in a blazer stands on the porch with a clipboard and a measuring wheel. Here for the appraisal, he says, cheerful as a weather report. For what? I ask through the cracked door. The property, he reads my address off the sheet. Shouldn't take long. Wrong house, I say, and let the word hang. Behind me, footsteps. Mark appears, smile glued on. Mix up, he tells the man. We're, getting numbers. Market check. He doesn't look at me when he says it. The appraiser's eyes flick between us. He hands over a card anyway and retreats to the rain. Mark watches him go. Relax, he says too casually. It's smart to know what this place could fetch. Fetch for whom? I ask. He gives me that thin grin. For reality. I hold his stare until he looks past me and into his future again. On the counter, his phone lights with a banner. Draft saved. 3 band, 2 Bus South Salem, $2,400. Another buzz follows. Tracy, Willamette Rentals. Can we show at 3? I move closer to rinse a cup I don't need to rinse. The screen brightens once more. I lift my own phone like I'm checking the time and take 2 quick photos. Click, click. Evidence doesn't argue. It remembers. Outside, rain strings the air. I step onto the porch to breathe. Reed comes along the sidewalk with his old shepherd tugging the leash. Ben, he says, tipping his cap. Twice this morning, folks ask me where the rental is on this block. One had a tape measure like he meant it. Thanks, I say. My voice comes out steady. If anyone asks again, tell them the co-owner says the house isn't for rent. Reed's eyebrows climb. He nods once, slow. Got it. Back inside, the kitchen smells like wet wool and coffee gone to ash. Mark is at the table flipping through listings, lips moving as he does math. You know what a yard like this adds to value? He says to the room. People pay for space. People also need the legal right to lease it, I say. He snorts. Legal is paperwork. Paperwork gets signed. Not without consent. He rolls his eyes. You gonna start paying me rent yet? Or are we done pretending you're not freeloading? I let the word land and slide off. I take my pen to the desk and pull a fresh sheet. Cease and desist, I write at the top in block letters, and below it the bones Mason and I discussed. No advertising or leasing of a co-owned residence without unanimous consent. No changing locks. No collecting rent from a co-owner with recorded occupancy rights. Any further attempt will be referred to council. I leave the letter unsigned on purpose. I want him to see the outline of what's coming before the stamp hits. I center it on the table the way you center a board before you cut. Not because wood needs ceremony, but because cuts do. The front door handle rattles with someone testing it from outside. Mark looks up, startled, then smug. 3 o'clock, he says, checking his phone. Don't be in the way. I slide the letter a little closer to him. Read before you schedule a showing. By lunch, Mark's tone turns honey thick. You need a break, he says, leaning in the doorway like a friend, not the man who slid me a bill this morning. Couple days, clear your head, I'll drive. Maybe even catch Monterey. Sea air's good for you. Monterey, I repeat, as if I'm tasting the word and not the bait. He smiles too quickly. Pack light. I already looked at flights. I nod once. Give me an hour. He brightens too easy. Great, I'll make some calls. Of course he will. In the garage, I move on muscle memory. The porch cam gets a minor tilt, half a degree down to catch hands near the deadbolt. The garage cam widens a hair, framing the side door and the path from the driveway. Motion sensitivity to high. Audio to max. A fresh battery pack snaps into place. The feed pings alive on my phone. Twin windows watching the gates like quiet sentries. I open the safe, only long enough to swap the original deed into a rigid sleeve and slide it into the false bottom of my tool bag. Not because Mark will find the safe, he won't, but because the most dangerous day for a house is the day its owner leaves it to people who want it empty. On the hallway table, I square the decoy envelope property transfer final so the bold letters catch the eye from the doorway. Next to it, the unsigned cease and desist, centered like a warning label. I step onto the porch. Reed is across the street, coaxing his old shepherd off a lamppost. Reed! I call. He waves. Got a favor. I say when he's close. If anyone tries to come in while I'm gone, tell them the co-owner says no. If a locksmith shows, call me first, then the non-emergency line. I'll owe you a pie. He squints at me, then at my door. I thought as much, he says. You got it, Ben. Back inside, Mark has put on his pleasant voice. Cars fueled. I texted you the itinerary. My phone buzzes. A PDF with flight times too tight to be thoughtful, and a hotel whose lobby is built for deals. He taps his watch. Clock's ticking. It always is, I say. I zip my bag and take one last pass through the rooms. The fridge hums. The clock ticks. The envelope waits like a lure. I flick the porch light to evening mode, then pull the front door until it snugs the weather strip and clicks. We're barely 5 minutes down Commercial Street when Mark says, light as ash. I need to make a quick call, and lowers his voice. I pretend to study the clouds dragging over the Capitol dome. My phone vibrates in my pocket. Motion detected. Front door. The preview shows a slice of slick step, a shoulder in a dark jacket just outside the frame. Another buzz. Motion detected. Garage. The thumbnail catches the edge of a cap and the gleam of a metal case. Not Mark, he's beside me, smiling at nothing. A surge of heat rises, then settles into something firmer. Proof doesn't need anger. It needs time. Everything okay? I ask, easy. Perfect, he says, and stares ahead through the wipers. I angle my screen away and watch the feed buffer, the timestamp burning every second into the corner like a nailhead. I find a quiet corner of the hotel lobby and open the feed. 2 black windows become 2 live rooms. Front door and garage each stamped with the Salem time in white numbers that don't blink. At 2:13, the porch camera catches a shoulder and a metal case. The man tilts his cap to keep the rain off. He kneels by the deadbolt and lays out pics like silver fish on a towel. 2:15. The garage view picks up headlights bleeding across the driveway. A familiar truck noses into frame. Mark climbs out with a woman in a branded jacket and a young couple in tow. The woman holds a clipboard. Her smile is for money, not weather. Audio hums, then clears. Change it, Mark says to the locksmith. He won't be back till Friday. The locksmith's hand pauses. You the only owner? I'm the one who matters, Mark snaps. Do the door, we've got a showing. He turns to the couple. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, South Salem, great yard. We can have you in by the weekend if the app checks out. I watch my own front step become a stage. The woman Tracy, from the banner on his phone, gestures toward the living room window. Big light. People pay for light. People pay for rights, I say under my breath and tap the screen to tag the clip. A red dot marks the timeline. Off-site backup confirms. Footsteps crunch on wet gravel. Reed's shepherd appears first, then Reed himself, hat beaded with rain. He stops at the edge of the porch. Afternoon, he says evenly. Ben asked me to keep an eye out. Co-owner says no entry without him. Mark's smile drops like a mask. Mind your business, Reed. This is my business, Reed replies. It's called being a neighbor. The locksmith straightens. Co-owner? He asks, looking from Reed to Mark. Don't listen to him, Mark barks. Do the job. He's an old man who doesn't pay a dime. Pay rent or get out, that's the rule. I'll put someone in who can afford it. The couple shift, eyes sliding toward each other. Tracy's smile cracks. Reed nods at the camera above the door. You're on record, Mark. Audio too. For a beat, the only sound is Salem rain and a dog shaking water from his coat. Then Mark swears short, ugly, and jabs a finger at the lock. Just do it. The locksmith backs a step. Not without all owners present, he says. I'm not getting sued today. Tracy clears her throat. We can reschedule, she says to the couple, already shepherding them back down the steps. We'll be in touch. Mark reaches for the garage handle. It doesn't give. The camera catches his face as he realizes he has fewer keys than he thought. He slams his palm against the door and says louder for my benefit or his own. He lives here because I allow it. I screen capture the frame where he says it, the timestamp burning in the corner like a nailhead. Then I take another read, standing steady, the locksmith turning away. Tracy already texting an apology to no one. A bell chimes at the lobby bar. People laugh. The world keeps happening. In my pocket, my phone is a small patient archive of a bad plan meeting daylight. I step outside under the hotel awning and call Mason. He answers on the first ring. Step 2, I say. We have video, audio, a locksmith, a rental agent, and a neighbor's statement. Send it, he says. When you get back, we deliver the letter. Then we lock this down. Tomorrow, I tell him. Tomorrow, he agrees. I hang up and watch the rain thread past the curb, thin and constant, the kind that soaks everything without ever getting loud. Rain stitches Salem into one long gray curtain. The dining table looks staged plates lined like soldiers, a bottle breathing everything neat, except the thick folder parked at my place. Mark wears an apron like a costume. Sit, he says, smile too bright. I cooked. The chicken is fine, the mood is not. He waits until I swallow, then shoves the folder with 2 fingers. Paperwork. To make this simple. For who, I ask? For the only person taking responsibility. He flicks the cover open. The first page shouts transfer of ownership. The second is a spreadsheet labeled rent due monthly total, columns for arrears. Like I'm a delinquent tenant in a house I framed. You're done living here for free, he says, voice flat as metal. 2 options. Sign the transfer, and you can stay as a guest, or start paying market rent on time, every month. Otherwise, you're gone. I'll have a real tenant in by the weekend. I watch him the way you watch a wall before you find the load, don't swing blind. You slid a bill under my door this morning, I say. Now you're calling it kindness. I'm calling it reality. He taps the spreadsheet. You're dead weight. I carry taxes, insurance, utilities. You don't carry anything. You drain, you stall, you squat. That ends tonight. I set my fork down. I carried lumber, I say. This roof exists because my hands hurt for it. He laughs without humor. Spare me the nostalgia. That was back when houses were wood and sweat. Now they're assets. Assets make money or they get repositioned. Stop playing owner. You're here because I allow it. This roof pays when I say it pays. He slides a pen across the table. Sign. I don't touch it. He leans in, voice sharpening. Or we do it the clean way. You keep pretending you're in charge. I go to court. Guardianship. Doctor writes what everyone can see you can't manage. Judge takes your pen and puts it in my hand. Quick. Clean. You won't even feel it. The cold that blooms in my chest is small and hard. Then it settles. You bringing a doctor to dessert? I ask. To the courthouse, he says, satisfied with the line. He pushes the ledger closer. Clock's ticking, renter keys. The house hums like it always has, steady and loyal the fridge's low throat. The window's faint rattle when the wind shifts. The small, brave tick of the wall clock. He hears noise. I hear witnesses. You want me to pay you, I say, for sleeping in the room I framed, drinking from the tap I soldered, walking on boards I laid. You want me to ask permission to fix a hinge in the house I built. I want you to stop freeloading, he snaps. Sign the transfer, start paying rent, or get out. I'll change the locks by Saturday. I'll put a real adult in here, someone who pays. He jabs the pen at me. Last chance. I close the folder gently and stand. Tomorrow, I say. You'll get an answer. He barks a laugh. From who? That nosy neighbor with the mutt? You think anyone cares? My phone buzzes. I glance at the screen. Mason. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., your house. Bring nothing. I'll bring everything. I slip the phone away. Eat while it's warm, I tell him. My chair legs complain across the tile the way they always have. At the doorway, his voice follows. This is happening with you or without you. You don't have leverage. In the hall, the house lays a hand between my shoulders, the cedar in the trim, the clean click of the clock stepping forward, the even breath of the appliances doing their honest work. I've lived with these sounds long enough to know what they mean. Tonight they don't say yield, they say get ready. At 10 sharp, the knock is different measured, professional. Mason steps in with rain on his coat and a leather case that looks heavier than paper should be. Mark is already at the table, arms crossed, chin tilted like a dare. Good morning, Mason says. He sets down a slim stack. Let's begin with what you threatened. Mark smirks. Finally, someone competent. Mason turns the top page so we both see the heading. Cognitive Capacity Evaluation, Dr. Carr. Notarized. Dated. Mr. Ben is fully competent to manage his affairs. This has been on file since December. Any petition for guardianship dies on contact. Mark's mouth opens, then shuts. You can't. We can, Mason says evenly. Next. The deed slides out in a clear sleeve. Co-ownership. 80-20 Ben first position. Recorded occupancy rights. No advertising, leasing, lock changes, or rent collection from a co-owner in possession without unanimous consent. He lays a letter on the table, my signature already there. Cease and desist. Any further attempt will be referred to civil and, if warranted, criminal counsel. Mark laughs thin. Paper. I line drawers with paper. Mason opens his laptop and rotates it. The porch cam plays. Locksmith's tools. Tracy's clipboard. A young couple shifting in the rain. Audio is clean. Change it, Mark says on screen. He won't be back till Friday. Reed's voice is steady. Owner says no entry without him. The locksmith backs off. The agent shepherds the couple away. Mason pauses on a frame of Mark jabbing the lock, timestamp burning in the corner. He taps again, the garage view rolls, Mark palming the handle, declaring, He lives here because I allow it. We have off-site backups and neighbor testimony, Mason says. Reed steps in from the doorway, cap in hand, and scrawls his name on a short statement. I saw what I saw, he says. The cameras heard the rest. A flush climbs Mark's neck. This is harassment. This is record, Mason replies. He draws a new set of documents. Instrument 1, Protective Trust for the Residents. Ben retains exclusive right of occupancy for life. No sale, lease, encumbrance, or access modification without the trustee's consent. I serve as trustee. I sign. The scratch sounds like a lock turning. Instrument 2, Revocation of all prior powers of attorney. From this moment, no one acts for Ben without express appointment. There is none. I sign again. Mason closes the folder, then looks to me. Anything else you want to address? Yes, I say. I keep my eyes on Mark. There's one more piece. From his case, Mason pulls a second envelope I asked him to bring. He places it between us. Letter of instruction, he says, regarding a separate savings account. Mark leans in, hungry. Finally, for years, I say, I set money aside, more than you think. I intended it for you quietly, someday, because fathers do things like that, even when their hands hurt and no one is watching. I tap the envelope. I changed my mind. He stares. You don't get to... I do, I say. What you did trying to shake rent out of a co-owner, bringing a locksmith to my door, telling strangers I live here because you allow it taught me where my money should work. Mason opens the envelope, slides out 2 forms. Designation for a donor-advised fund in Eve's name, he explains. Primary grants, trades, scholarships, and local elder support. Initial funding from Ben's savings, effective upon filing. Mark's chair screeches. You're giving my inheritance to strangers? I'm giving your mother's name to something that builds instead of strips, I say. Scholarships for kids who will learn to use their hands. Help for older people who get cornered like you tried to corner me. You can't punish me with charity, he spits. It isn't punishment, I say softly. It's correction. Mason slides me a pen. I sign the instruction. He countersigns as witness. The room breathes the fridge's low hum, rain easing on the eaves. The brave tick of the clock stepping forward as if to say, "Proceed." Mark points at the trust papers. "You think this boxes me out?" Mason clicks his pen closed. "The law already has. You may live here respectfully. You may not extort rent from a co-owner in possession. You may not lease what you do not control. You may not change locks on an occupied dwelling. Try, and your words on that video will play on loop in court, while motions and fees pile up." He gathers the stack, checks the tabs. Reed taps his brim. "You need anything, I'm across the street." Mark's eyes burn holes into the envelope with Eve's name on it. "This isn't over." "No," I say. "It's clarified." Mason snaps his case shut. "We'll record the trust and file the fund designation this afternoon." The front door opens onto a rinsed, lighter morning. For the first time in a long while, the house and my decisions feel weighted in the right places. By afternoon, the rain thins and the house exhales. Light lays a pale stripe down the hall, catching the grain of boards I set decades ago. On the table, Mason's tabs curl back to ordinary paper. In the drive, Mark hoists a duffel without looking at me. His truck door shuts, the street returns to wet maples and the faint rush of commercial. I open windows. Damp air lifts the old breath from corners. In the workshop, I reset what was knocked awry pliers back to their outlines. The stool settled in its familiar lean. The safe waits where it always has, paint nicked, patient, not a throne, a tool. The porch step no longer complains. I see last month's fix, 2 shims, 1 longer screw, a finger of glue, small things holding. My knees ache when I crouch. I answer them with a rag and linseed oil. The wood wakes under my palm. The house answers back, steady and loyal. In the hall closet, I find a shoebox behind an old coat. Inside, a tape measure with E scratched into the steel and a recipe card in Eve's hand, lemon bars in neat blue loops. On the back, a line so small I almost miss it. Build to last. Be kind second. Be clear first. I sit on the bed and let the words settle in exactly that order. The phone rings. "Recorded," Mason says. "Trust and fund. Certified copies en route. Notice to the rental office going out this afternoon." I thank him. The word feels too small. "Send Reed my thanks in writing," I add. "He will." At 5, Reed knocks, shepherd in tow. I hand him a pie I didn't plan, but somehow baked between calls. "You didn't have to," he says. "I did," I tell him. He nods at the tiny eye above the door. "That little camera pulled weight." "It didn't do it alone," I say. "It had neighbors." When the door closes, I sit with a legal pad and draw 2 columns. Left, the repairs mark waved like flag's hinge that only squeaks when you rush it, faucet that quiets if you touch it right, ceiling stained from a spill, not a leak. Right, calls to make Center Street Senior Center, legal aid 2 towns over, the DOJ's elder financial abuse line. Beneath the numbers I write, ask what they need. Bring copies of Mason's letter. Offer time. People will say I won because I had a lawyer and a camera, because the deed said 80-20 and a doctor signed a line with my name on it. Maybe. But paper alone doesn't hold a house any more than a photo holds a person. What held was knowing what a house is for and who you are inside it. Be clear first. Dusk tucks itself into the corners. I shut the windows and swipe a thin run of rain from the sill. I touch the banister where my hand burned it smooth long ago, and let it take my weight. Not because I doubt the wood, but because we earned the rest, together. On the bench, I set Eve's tape measure. The E turned up to catch light. Her recipe card goes in the drawer with the screwdrivers, a sweet thing beside the tools that fix what breaks. Tomorrow I'll bake and eat on the back steps. I'll write the first check to the fund in her name and take copies to the senior center. Tonight, I stand in the doorway and listen to the house breathe in its right proportions. This place stays where it is, and so do I. Dignity needs boundaries, and love without clarity can become leverage. Be clear first, then kind. Protect what you build, and never ignore the early signs of financial abuse. Paperwork, neighbors, and patience matter, but so do courage and a steady voice. I believe God honors the courage to tell the truth without hate. When family crosses the line, step into the light of due process, not vengeance. With God and good counsel, you can turn a house back into a home, and a wound back into wisdom. Remember, what you tolerate today becomes tomorrow's norm. What you document today becomes tomorrow's shield.